Welcome to the BSc Nursing class. I am Dr. Ramya, second year PG, MD Pharmacology. Today we are going to learn about the topics emetics, antiemetics, treatment of constipation, and antidiarrheal drugs. What is vomiting? Vomiting is a forceful expulsion of contents of the stomach. Emetics are the drugs that produce vomiting. Emetics are classified as centrally acting, peripherally acting emetics, both centrally and peripherally acting emetics. In centrally acting emetics, we have morphine and apomorphine as examples. In peripherally acting emetics, we have mustard oil, antimony potassium tartarate, hypertonic sodium chloride. These two are the solutions. Ipecacuanha is a drug that can act centrally as well as peripherally as an emetic. First, before going into detail, let's learn about physiology of vomiting. In brain, we have medulla oblongata, where we have chemoreceptor trigger zone and area prostrema, nucleus tractus solitarius. All of these are present in medulla oblongata of brain. The triggering factors which induce the vomiting are memory, fear, taste, sight, smell, and pain. They stimulate the receptors which are present on chemoreceptor trigger zone and they induce vomiting. They also cause hypotension, hypoxia, and raised intracranial pressure. Drugs like opioids, anesthetic drugs, and drugs which are used in chemotherapy, they stimulate the 5-HT3 receptor which is present on the chemoreceptor trigger zone and they induce the vomiting. In certain surgeries, the toxins or gastroparesis in motion sickness or in any middle ear surgeries or any labyrinthine disorders, they stimulate the cholinergic and histaminic receptors which are present in the vomiting center. All these are the triggering factors which act on these, which stimulate these receptors and then they induce the vomiting. Coming to the therapeutic uses of emetics, it is limited to certain cases of poisoning, especially where gastric lavage are not possible. Emetics should be avoided in children and elderly. Emetics should also be avoided in pregnant and lactating women because they have many correlating adverse reactions. They should also be avoided in cardiac decompensation, hypertension, hernia, gastric ulcers, and pulmonary tuberculosis because they worsen these conditions. Coming to centrally acting, example, we have apomorphine. It is a drug that can be given subcutaneously. This drug causes vomiting within 15 minutes. Vomiting are also associated with sedation. That is, this drug also causes sedation. Large doses of this drug may cause tremors, restlessness, convulsions, and respiratory depression. It may cause syncope and coma also in some patients. It is highly effective but are not used. In case of poisoning due to apomorphine, nalorphine is used or can be used as an antidote. Coming to peripherally acting emetics. Peripherally acting emetics, they cause vomiting by irritating the gastric mucosa. In this, we have mustard oil and sodium chloride. Mustard, it is a volatile oil which is formed as a result of reaction between glycoside and an enzyme in the presence of water. It is a safe and easily available oil. It is a common household remedy. The dose includes 1 spoon in 300 ml of water. This should be made to drink by the patient and it induces vomiting. Coming to sodium chloride is also given orally. This causes irritation with reflex emesis. Ipecacuanha syrup. This acts as both centrally and peripherally acting emetic. Ipecacuanha syrup, it is an alkaloid emetin, and it is a safe emetic. It is relatively safe in children, but it should be avoided in infants. This drug evokes emesis in poisoning with drug that depresses the chemoreceptor trigger zone, example chlorpromazine. The usual adult dose is 15 ml by mouth and can be repeated after 20 minutes if the patient fails to vomit. Coming to antiemetics. Antiemetics, the treatment of are the drugs which help in the treatment of vomiting. The treatment of vomiting consists of the treating the cause, example, relief of the pain, treatment of gastrointestinal infection, obstruction, and colic, reduction in the intracranial tension, or correction of metabolic acidosis. It also helps in the treatment of this symptomatic treatment with antiemetics, supportive therapy, that is correction of the dehydration and electrolyte disturbances. Antiemetics. Antiemetics, these are the drugs that prevent or relieve nausea and vomiting. The classification of antiemetics is as follows. Antihistaminics, example, cyclizine, meclizine, promethazine, dimenhydrate. Antidopaminergic, which are D2 receptors, example, chlorpromazine and related drugs, metoclopramide and domperidone. 5-HT3 antagonists, example, ondansetron, granisetron, dolasetron, palonsetron, and ginger. Antimuscarinic, example, scopolamine. Antagonists of NK1 receptors for substance P, example, aprepitant, netopitant. Miscellaneous drugs such as nabilone, trimethobenzamide, and benzquinamide. Clinically, the antiemetics are also grouped according to their potency as most potent, moderately potent, weak, and glucocorticoids. Most potent include ondansetron, granisetron, and high-dose metoclopramide. Whereas moderately potent, they include low-dose metoclopramide, phenothiazines, cannabinoids. Weak potent antiemetics include anticholinergics, antihistaminics, and benzodiazepines. Glucocorticoids, these are used as adjuncts, that is along with the other drugs in the management of resistant nausea and vomitings which are induced by cancer chemotherapy. Coming to antihistaminic, antiemetic drugs. Examples, dimenhydrinate, cyclizine, promethazine, and meclizine. These drugs, they act on the vomiting center and they have mild sedative effect. They are effective in motion sickness, in vomitings due to labyrinthine disorder. Labyrinthine is a structure which is present in the middle ear, which balances our posture. These also help in vomitings during pregnancy. Antihistaminic antiemetic drugs, they do not play an important role in vomitings due to gastroenteritis. Coming to phenothiazines, these are the drugs, examples include chlorpromazine, prochlorperazine, and dopamine D2 receptors. They depress chemoreceptor trigger zone but have no action on vomiting centers. They are ineffective in motion sickness. Phenothiazines are the drugs of choice in vomiting due to uremia, carcinomatosis, and radiation sickness, and that due to these drugs. They cause extrapyramidal adverse effects. So their use is very limited. Prokinetic drugs. These are the drugs that promote coordinated gastrointestinal motility, maintaining physiological pattern and rhythm. These are mainly D2 antagonists. Example, metoclopramide and domperidone. These are the prokinetic drugs. They act as dopamine antagonists in the chemoreceptor trigger zone, and they also act as central antiemetics. Since 5-HT plays an important role in the GI motility and is present in the neurons of the myenteric plexus, prokinetics action can also be achieved by the action of 5-HT4 receptor agonists. Metoclopramide. Metoclopramide, it is an antiemetic which is chemically related to procainamide. It acts predominantly as dopamine antagonist. It also has 5-HT4 agonist properties. It has two components which show antiemetic effect. One, that is centrally by inhibiting vomiting, which is due to the blockade of dopamine receptors in chemoreceptor trigger zone. And the next is peripherally by 5-HT4 action. Here, it promotes the forward propulsion of the contents of the upper GI tract, particularly from the stomach to the mouth. Coming to preparation and dosage, metoclopramide is available as 10 mg tablets. It is also available as syrup and injections. The dose includes 5 to 10 mg thrice in a day per orally, or 10 to 20 mg injection, which can be given as IM or IV. An injection of 20 mg produces gastric emptying within 90 minutes in most patients. Coming to therapeutic uses of metoclopramide. Metoclopramide can be used as an antiemetic, especially in post-operative vomitings. It can be used in low doses, that is 10 mg IM or IV thrice in a day. It can also be used before and during cancer chemotherapy to prevent nausea and vomiting. It can be used in higher doses, that is 0.5 to 3 mg per kg IV, which should be given very slowly for over 15 minutes. It can also use to accelerate the gastric emptying before induction of general anesthesia or prior administration of atropine. It can also be used in assistance of passage of tubes, examples like endoscope or bronchoscope. Endoscopes while passage into the duodenum, bronchoscope while passing through the trachea, so that it does not affect the gag reflex. Coming to the last use, it can also use to treat the gastroparesis and gastroesophageal reflux disease, that is GERD. Examples like in vagotomy, diabetic gastritis, and gastric ulcers. The adverse effects of metoclopramide include drowsiness, diarrhea, extrapyramidal reactions, hyperprolactinemia, gynecomastia, galactorrhea, sodium retention, and hypokalemia. The daily intake of metoclopramide should not exceed 0.5 mg per kg. Coming to domperidone. Domperidone is a selective D2 receptor antagonist. Its antiemetic action is due to the action on chemoreceptor trigger zone. Domperidone does not cross blood-brain barrier, so it has less side effects compared to metoclopramide, like extrapyramidal reactions, hyperprolactinemia, or galactorrhea. Domperidone is effective orally and parenterally. Oral dose of domperidone is 10 to 20 mg, which can be given 3 times or 4 times in a day. Coming to cisapride. Cisapride, it is a prokinetic drug that stimulates gastrointestinal motility by acting as 5-HT4 receptor agonist. It has its action on colon also. It has no direct antiemetic actions. Adverse reactions of cisapride include: it increases the urinary frequency, it increases the abdominal cramps, and it also increases the frequency of diarrhea. It prolongs Q3 interval, and it increases the toxicity of the other drugs, which also include the prolongation of QT interval. Serious cardiac arrhythmias and death have also been reported. This drug has now been withdrawn from the market as deaths have been reported. Coming to musapride, it is another 5-HT4 agonist with lesser side effects. Etopride, it has similar actions like metoclopramide. Nabilone. Nabilone, it is a synthetic cannabinoid which is used to treat nausea and vomiting caused by cancer chemotherapy, and it is also used in patients who are unresponsive to conventional antiemetics. Adverse reactions of nabilone include neurological vertigo, drowsiness, visual disturbances, confusion, hallucinations, and psychosis. It may also cause hypotension, severe tachycardia, abdominal cramps. Nabilone is contraindicated in patients with severe hepatic impairment and in pregnancy and in breastfeeding, as this drug is secreted in the breast milk. Adult dose of nabilone is 1 to 2 mg, which can be given thrice in a day. Dronabinol. It is a naturally occurring and synthetically prepared ingredient of cannabis. It acts on CB1 receptors and is used orally to prevent cancer chemotherapy induced nausea and vomiting. It acts synergistically, that is, along with the phenothiazine antiemetics. Adverse drug reactions are more than nabilone, and this drug can also cause drug abuse. Coming to selective 5-HT3 antagonists. Examples like ondansetron, palonosetron are used to prevent and treat chemotherapy-induced vomitings. And also post-operative and post-radiation vomitings can also be treated with these drugs. Substance P and NK1 receptor antagonists. Examples: aprepitant, netopitant. They selectively inhibit substance P and NK1 receptors, and they exert antiemetic actions. The adverse drug reactions of these drugs include headache, dyspepsia, and constipation. Now, let us learn the treatment about constipation. Constipation. What is constipation? Constipation means delayed passage of feces through the intestine with defecation process which remains normal. The evacuation, that is gastric emptying, is often associated with straining and which is also incomplete. That is, the fecal matter remains in the gastric mucosa. Constipation can naturally be corrected by either increase in fiber diet, increase in fluid intake, increase in physical activity. You should not neglect any nature's call, adjusting the daily routine, selecting alternative drugs which cause lesser constipation as side effects, correcting the underlying pathology such as vitamin B1 deficiency, hypothyroidism, diabetes mellitus, Parkinson's disease. If all these non-therapeutic measures fail, then laxatives or purgatives can be used. The intensity of laxatives and purgatives depends on their dose. A purgative in a smaller dose acts as a laxative, whereas a laxative in higher dose acts as a purgative. Laxative. What is laxative? Laxatives, these result in the elimination of soft and semi-solid stool. Whereas purgative, this results in more watery evacuation of the gastric mucosa. These terms can be used interchangeably and effects are many times indistinguishable. Coming to purgatives. Purgatives are the drugs that are used as complete colonic cleansing prior to treat a constipation, to avoid undue straining at defecation in cases of hernia, hemorrhoids, and cardiovascular diseases. They can also be used prior to post-operative and post-MI, that is myocardial infection, bed infarction in uh, bedridden patients. They are used to flush out worms after antihelminthic drug treatment. They are used to prepare bowels before surgery. In purgatives, we have many different forms. First, we'll talk about bulk forming purgative. Examples, we have wheat bran, psyllium husk, semi-synthetic cellulose. These bulk forming purgatives are luminally active, hydrophilic, that is water soluble. They stimulate peristalsis and defecation reflexes by increasing fecal bulk due to their water absorbing and retaining capacity. The effect appears within 1 to 3 days. They are quite safe in humans. They may lead to bloating and flatus, causing abdominal cramps. Coming to osmotic purgatives. In this, we have saline purgatives and polyethylene glycol, which is PEG, and lactulose. Coming to saline purgatives, they are soluble in inorganic salts, which increase the fecal bulk by retaining water by osmotic effect, thus increases peristalsis indirectly. Polyethylene glycol, this is a sugar that retains the water by its virtue of its high osmotic nature. It is an isotonic solution which is prepared by adding sodium chloride, sodium sulfate, sodium bicarbonate, and potassium chloride. This solution is safe for all the patients. PEG, that is polyethylene glycol. It is an electrolyte osmotic purgative which is ingested orally. 4 liters of this solution should be ingested over 2 to 3 hours for complete cleansing prior to gastrointestinal tract endoscopic procedures. For treatment of chronic constipation, Smaller doses of this solution can be used, that is from 300 to 500 ml. Saline purgatives should be ingested with enough water as they are irritable to the mucosa. These should not be used in long-term basis and should be avoided in hypertensives and in CHF patients, congestive heart failure patients. Lactulose. It can be used in 10 grams or 15 ml. It is also called as sorbitol. It is luminally active, non-absorbable, indigestible sugar. It increases the fecal bulk by hydrophilic action and also due to osmotic action. It is given in a dose of 10 mg twice in a day or thrice in a day with plenty of water. Side effects include flatulence, which is common. Abdominal cramps also may occur. Patients may feel nauseated because of its sweet taste. Coming to lubricant purgative. Example, liquid paraffin. Liquid paraffin is luminally active. It contains mineral oil. It is a fecal lubricant and stool softener as it retains water absorption from the stool. Dose includes 15 to 30 ml per day at bedtime. Frequent use of liquid paraffin leads to the deficiency of fat-soluble vitamins, that is A, D, A, D, E, and K vitamins. It also delays the healing of enteric fistula. It is used only in occasionally to prevent straining during defecation. Coming to surfactant purgative, we have diacetyl sodium sulfosuccinate. This surfactant purgative is also luminally active agent which softens the stool by decreasing the surface tension of the fluids in the bowel. This purgative facilitates the mixture of water into fatty acids of the feces, which helps in easy evacuation. The dose of this surfactant purgative is 100 to 400 mg per day, which is a mild laxative. It can cause nausea due to its bitter taste. It may also cause abdominal cramps. Hepatotoxicity may occur after the prolonged use. Irritant purgative. In this, we have anthraquinone group, organic irritants, and oils like castor oil. All these three, they stimulate the peristalsis by irritant action on the intestinal mucosa. They also stimulate the colonic electrolyte and fluid secretion by altering the absorption and secretory activity of mucosal cells. Senna, which is an anthraquinone group, cascara and aloe. Senna is the most commonly used. Aloe, senna, cascara, they occur naturally in plants. They stimulate small intestine locally and they induce vomitings. They treat constipation. Bisacodyl is metabolized in the intestine into active deacetylated metabolite which promotes water and electrolyte accumulation. Castor oil, it itself is non-irritant. It is hydrolyzed in intestine by pancreatic lipase to ricinoleic acid, which increases the intestinal motility. The dosage of these include Sennoside A and B, which is used as 12 to 25 mg during bedtime. The effect of this comes within 6 to 8 hours. Bisacodyl, it is given 5 to 10 mg at bedtime. The effect of bisacodyl occurs within 8 to 10 hours. Castor oil, 15 to 25 ml in the morning, as the effect appears within the 3 hours of its intake. Coming to side effects of these. Chronic use of senna causes brown pigmentation of colon, which is characteristic, and it is called as melanosis coli. Bisacodyl causes abdominal cramps and skin rashes. Its overdosage can cause colonic atony and hypokalemia. Castor oil is no longer favored as purgative because of its frequent abdominal cramping after constipation. All of them should be avoided in pregnancy. Coming to antidiarrheal agents, we have learned till now about emetics, antiemetics, and treatment of constipation. Now, let us learn about antidiarrheal agents. What is diarrhea? Diarrhea is defined as an abnormal increase in the frequency and the liquidity of the stools. The major factors which cause the diarrhea are increased motility of the gastrointestinal tract and the decreased absorption of water from the stool. For the symptomatic relief of non-specific diarrheas, the following drugs can be used. First, anti-motility and anti-secretory drugs. These include opioid agonists, anticholinergics, alpha-2 adrenergic receptor agonists, octreotide, adsorbent drugs, miscellaneous drugs. All these are anti-motility and anti-secretory drugs. Coming to opioid agonists. In opioid agonists, we have loperamide, diphenoxylate or diphenoxin, which is an active metabolite of diphenoxylate, and resveratrol. These drugs act by stimulating peripheral mu receptors as well as the delta receptors, which are present on small and large intestine. Activation of mu receptors decreases the gastrointestinal motility, whereas the activation of delta receptors decreases the intestinal secretions. All the opioids such as morphine or codeine have antidiarrheal effects, but they have other CNS effects and they also have the dependence liability. Coming to loperamide, it is the over the counter drug, that is, it is easily available in pharmaceutical shops. It does not cross blood-brain barrier. It has no analgesic property and no addiction liability. It is 40 times more potent than morphine as an antidiarrheal agent. The usual adult dose of loperamide is 4 mg followed by 2 mg after every loose motion. The daily dosage should not exceed 16 mg per day. The onset of action of loperamide is 1 to 2 hours and the duration of its effect is 6 to 12 hours. In chronic diarrhea, it is given as 2 to 4 mg thrice in a day. Coming to diphenoxylate, its active metabolite is diphenoxin. These are other substances that have no analgesic properties. As an antidiarrheal agent, it is more potent than morphine, but it is less potent than loperamide. Higher doses of diphenoxylate may show CNS effects and dependence liability. The most popular formulation of Diphenoxin is Lamotil. It consists of diphenoxin 2.5 mg plus atropine 0.025 mg. Atropine, it provides antispasmodic effect and it prevents diphenoxin abuse. The usual dose is 2 tablets thrice in a day or 4 times in a day. These drugs have shown to be effective against traveler's diarrhea. The recommended doses are well tolerated. These drugs should not be used in the patients with uh, colitis to avoid megacolon. These drugs should not be used in children who are below 2 years of age as they have risk of paralytic ileus. Coming to resveratrol. It is a new antidiarrheal drug. It is encapsulinase inhibitor that increases the local concentration of encapsulins in the intestinal mucosa and then stimulate mu and delta opioid receptors like loperamide. Its anti-secretory effects are more compared to the anti-motility effects. The usual adult dose is 100 to 300 mg thrice in a day. The mild side effects include nausea, constipation, and headache, which have been reported. This drug can be is secreted through breast milk, so this should be avoided in lactating mothers. There are no significant drug interactions. Coming to anticholinergics. Anticholinergics, drugs like hyoscyamine and dicyclomine. These decrease the bowel motility and increase the fluid absorption. They also decrease the abdominal cramps. These drugs are used in the combination with adsorbents or opiates. Adverse effects show anticholinergic effects. Coming to alpha 2 adrenergic receptor agonists. Clonidine in a dose of 0.1 mg BD orally. This facilitates the absorption and inhibits secretion of fluid and electrolytes. This drug has special role in treatment of diabetic diarrhea and diarrhea which is caused by opiate withdrawal. This may cause lowering of blood pressure, so its use as routine antidiarrheal agent is limited. Coming to octreotide. Octreotide, it is a synthetic octapeptide analog of somatostatin. The T-half of octreotide varies from 1.5 to 2 hours. It is more potent than somatostatin in inhibiting the secretion of growth hormone, glucagon, insulin, and vasoactive intestinal peptide, VIP. Its antidiarrheal property inhibits the release of 5-HT, gastrin, secretin, CCK, motilin, and pancreatic polypeptides. Octreotide decreases gastrointestinal motility, intestinal fluid and electrolyte secretion, pancreatic secretions, and also gallbladder contractions. It is mainly used to treat secretory diarrheas associated with carcinoid tumors and vasoactive intestinal peptide secreting tumors. It is used to treat acromegaly and to prevent variceal bleeding. as it decreases the hepatic blood flow. The dosage includes 100 mcg twice in a day or thrice in a day, which is given subcutaneously. It has both short-term therapy and long-term therapy. The side effects of short-term therapy include symptoms like nausea, abdominal discomfort, or pain at the injection site. The side effects of long-term therapy include gallstone formation, hypothyroidism, and fat-soluble vitamin deficiency. The newer analogs of octreotide are lanreotide, seglitide, vapreotide. Coming to adsorbent drugs, ковалин and pectin. Both of these drugs adsorb bacteria, enterotoxins, and the fluid. They increase the consistency of the fecal matter. This is a popular combination, that is ковалин and pectin is a popular combination, but it is less used. In other adsorbent drugs are bismuth subsalicylate. It is also adsorbent drug which reduces the stool frequency and liquidity in acute diarrhea due to the inhibition of prostaglandin synthesis and chlorine secretion by its salicylate counterpart. Bismuth has some antimicrobial effects which binds to the enterotoxins, and they provide a protective covering or a coating over the inflamed gastric mucosa. Bismuth subsalicylate causes a characteristic blackening of the stool, which is often mistaken for melena, and it also causes darkening of the tongue. These two reactions, they occur because of a reaction between bismuth and sulfide to form a black bismuth sulfide. As a reason, they cause blackening of the stool and darkening of the tongue. No adsorbent drug should be taken within 2 hours of the other medication because it may decrease the absorption, that is oral absorption of the other drugs. Coming to miscellaneous agents. In this we have lactobacillus, sporogens, and lactase. Lactobacillus, they replace the normal bacterial flora which is lost during the acute diarrhea or due to the use of antibiotics. These are also used as adjuvant therapy for after stomatitis and diarrhea. Coming to lactase, lactase is an enzyme which is responsible for digesting lactose. It is a common disaccharide present in the dairy products. In the absence of lactase, lactose draws water into the gastrointestinal tract and causes diarrhea. Lactase is indicated for individuals who have insufficient amount of lactase in small intestine. These are the major drugs which are used as to treat the diarrhea. The main important thing is oral rehydration therapy. During diarrhea, a glucose coupled sodium transport continues in the intestine, which causes the water and electrolyte loss through the stools. If the fluid loss is severe or the vomiting persists, there may be a need for IV fluids for rehydration. Oral rehydration solution replaces the fluid or electrolytes which the body lost during diarrhea. The glucose-based ORS, as per WHO, which can be made at home, consists of sodium chloride 3.5 grams, potassium chloride 1.5 gram, sodium citrate 2.9 grams, glucose 20 grams. All these should be mixed in 1 liter of water. The total osmolarity of this oral rehydration solution is 311 millimoles per liter. The WHO has recommended by the replacement of this standard, that is 311 millimoles liter, to a new 245 millimole per liter. This formula consists of sodium chloride, which is 2.6 grams, potassium chloride 1.5 grams, which is same, sodium citrate 2.9 grams, which is also same, glucose is 13.5 grams. All these should be mixed in 1 liter of water. For mild to moderate diarrhea in adults, approximately 2 to 3 liters of these mentioned ORS, that is 245 millimoles per liter formula, should be consumed within first 4 hours. Carbonated drinks like tea, coffee and hypertonic juices should be avoided as they worsen these diarrhea conditions. Coming to cereal-based ORS. Cereal-based ORS has an advantage of controlling diarrhea much more effectively than glucose-based ORS. The commonly used is the rice-based ORS formula. The rice-based ORS formula includes pre-cooked rice flour, which is 10.15 grams, sodium chloride, which is 0.94 grams, sodium citrate 0.20 grams, potassium citrate 0.44 grams. All of these should be mixed in a water of 200 ml solution. These should be fed to a patient with diarrhea. The ORS solutions should not be gulped at once. They should be given only with spoon, with single sips, so that the person does not vomit. Coming to nursing care, while treating diarrhea patients, your responsibility is to assess the stool color, the volume and the frequency, the number of times he is having the episodes of diarrhea should be noticed, so that whether the frequency is decreased or increased can be noted, whether the antidiarrheal drugs are acting on the patient or not. Your responsibility is also to observe the signs of dehydration, that is dry mouthing and hypothermia, and if the patient has any uh, low pulse rates and heart rates, these all should be checked. You should also access the adverse drug reactions and drug interactions when you are treating these patients. Not only in patients who are taking antidiarrheal treatment, but also in patients who are treated for constipation or antiemetic drugs. You should access the intake of water and output of urine also, so that you can calculate the general, you can compare the person when he is normal and when he is facing dehydration. You should advise the patients not to take alcohol and smoking, and to avoid any other habits. These are the nursing care which you have to take care. Thank you.